hope is someday, when the next Aristotle is alive, we can capture the underlying worldview of that Aristotle in a computer.
Imagine caring for someone you love, a parent, a spouse, or a grandparent, who is slowly losing their independence to dementia or aging. It's a journey filled with love, but also with heartbreak, exhaustion, and countless sleepless nights. For millions of caregivers around the world, this isn't just a possibility, it's their daily lives. But there's hope. Through groundbreaking research and the incredible potential of AI and AgeTech, the future of caregiving is more connected and more compassionate and less overwhelming.
All aboard!
He's zoned out. He's zoned out. He doesn't even know if I'm talking about him, praising him, and understanding that this gentleman, this is my hero that's like really giving us the love. My name is Carlos Olivas Jr., but I'm also known as the Third. And I am a family caregiver for my dad living with Alzheimer's.
What is it, Bob?
What is it? My brain for today.
I'm a proponent of advancing and normalizing dementia care.
Angel Westerman is a professional caregiver with over 15 years of experience in the age-tech industry.
Oh my gosh. The caregiving job is so hard, but I think that most important, I think every time I've talked to a family, I mean, what they really want to do is have these special moments and really enjoy the time, whether it's a mother, father, grandparent, whoever it is that they're taking care of. But everything else seems to get in the way.
I became the supervisor until I realized that I was doing more than just supervising. I was caring. I was caring for a loved one with a disease that I didn't know anything about.
Professor Bob Levinson led the research study with his team at UC Berkeley, and my team, Care Daily.
Families that are caring for someone with dementia become really socially isolated. People don't want to, old friends kind of drop off and they don't want to visit anymore, and people are kind of horrified to see this person who they used to know is not there anymore.
We all need social interactions, and the most important social interactions for everyone is the social interaction with our family members, our loved ones.
We know that if they don't get rest, they don't take care of themselves, if they don't have a life outside of caring for this person, it's going to make them really prone to mental health decline and physical health decline. And the average caregiver has a very, very bad go of it.
We heard stories of, for example, one woman said she was rubber banding her arm to her husband's arm so that when he would wake up at night, the rubber band would snap and then she'd know he was awake. People are hacking together solutions today and desperate for help.
May God take me before I become dependent on someone. Unfortunately, her wish didn't come true. But I certainly want to make sure that wish comes true for me, her daughter.
Dementia is kind of not well understood, and one of the things that happen when people become demented is they withdraw from the social world. And so a lot of people don't see it. And if they see it, it's kind of a dark mystery that they don't deeply understand.
There's many times where I feel alone. I can be in a room full of family members and friends and feel like I'm a million miles away. That no one understands what I'm going through. No one feels the way I do. No one knows what I had to go through to be there at that particular moment.
Our group had been studying people with dementia for 2 decades, and we've been formally studying caregivers for about 10 years. But we'd never really done much that was designed to an intervention that was we thought might help people. We actually had set up a clinic at Berkeley about 5 years earlier, and we were seeing whether psychotherapy, couples therapy, and things like that were helpful. But we were finding that the issues that the caregivers and the people with dementia were having really weren't the kinds of things that you had to just talk through. They were more existential and immediate, like how do I know that the person in my care is safe?
Everything is turned upside down. We don't feel like there's enough, that we're doing enough. There's not a playbook that we can follow that shows that we're going to get these results.
My mom had dementia. And one of the toughest things with her condition was she would forget where she was, and the hardest part was when she would forget that my father had passed away.
It's just a natural mode of the way a family operates, is the children should take care of their elders, right?
I'm Mary Furlong, CEO and founder of Mary Furlong and Associates. I'm a serial entrepreneur in the longevity market. There's a huge ecosystem that involves nonprofit, governments, investors, entrepreneurs, and there's more momentum in this market than there's ever been. There is no bigger opportunity than to connect families and friends together with older adults who are navigating health issues.
People are living 20 years or more past the so-called retirement age. We have an exploding population of people who need to be cared for, who want to live independently.
One of the ways that we got into caring for people in the first place is that we created this amazing product called Presence. And Presence turns your old smartphone into a free video camera with built-in motion detection and alerts.
My name is Samantha Neufeld, and I'm currently a UX researcher at Microsoft, but I started my UX research career with People Power, which is now Care Daily.
We ended up with a huge audience of people who were using this app Presence to connect back with the things that mattered most to them back at home. And Samantha researched our user base.
The team was really trying to understand where are the big opportunities here. If you have the ability to keep an eye on something, what are the things people really want to keep an eye on?
The app was used by millions of people around the world to reach back into the home and connect with the things that matter most to them.
When we researched what was going on there, we found out that a lot of people were using Presence to watch over their loved ones, their mother or their grandfather.
We heard things like, I was able to keep my job because I didn't have to stay at home worrying about my elderly mother and monitoring her. I could keep an eye on her remotely.
I'm David Moss. I am the CEO and the co-founder here at Care Daily.
The power of having entrepreneurs like the Care Daily founders who can interpret the data, see where the trends are going, and also the infusion of venture capitalists and other investors and government entities that can bring those pieces together. So it's often the entrepreneurs that are solving problems faster.
I'm Gene Wong, and I am a serial entrepreneur.
It was Gene's wife, Leslie, who introduced me to Gene many years ago at a previous startup company called Bitphone Corporation.
I met Gene way before People Power. I was his executive assistant at another startup called Bitphone Corporation down in Southern California.
That company had created the global standards for how to do firmware updates on your phones. That means anytime you update your phone software, you're using standards that this company Bitphone helped create.
After about 5 years working with Bitphone, I decided to go back to grad school for social psychology. And so I left Bitphone, but ended up keeping in touch with a lot of those folks, including, of course, Gene and David.
And Samantha and I ended up getting married.
So I first met Professor Bob Levinson in a wedding reception because David Moss, our CEO, was getting married to Samantha.
Now, I think Bob didn't want to be there. I think Professor Levinson was being nice and showing support for his wife.
I mean, for one thing, it's just like, I'm thrilled with it because I love when worlds collide in that way, and who would have ever thought when I was like at Berkeley in some giant auditorium taking a class from this professor that he'd be at my wedding.
And it was at the wedding reception that I introduced Gene to Bob. Now, it turns out Professor Bob Levinson also plays music. He plays saxophone, and he also has a music studio. So Gene has a music studio and plays saxophone. Bob has a music studio and plays saxophone. These two have to meet. And they met at the wedding reception where after they got done talking about the weather and music, I think the conversation turned to, what is it that you guys do at this company? Well, we're creating solutions that help family caregivers care for people with dementia and Alzheimer's. And what do you do, Professor Levinson? He said, I run the largest psychology lab in the world that studies seniors and dementia and aging and Alzheimer's.
One of the early things that Gene and I sort of bonded around was that he had worked with, I think his name was Philippe Kahn, who started Borland, a company that sort of reintroduced Pascal into a more usable programming language. And that was the language that I had used when I was in graduate school and later on to write all of our lab software. And so the fact that he was part of that group, and we could talk about that a little bit because I still write computer programs. I'm working on a big project now.
But we got to talking and drinking together, and he said, there really should be some good scientific research to understand the impact of these advanced technologies for caregivers helping people with dementia. And so it was in that, wonderful little bar that we hatched the idea of working together with UC Berkeley, which is really one of the finest research institutions in the world.
That was quite a connection. And I think of our wedding as being one of the most profitable wedding receptions that I've ever heard of. Out of that connection, we decided to apply for a grant together from the NIA.
Through many startups, I have learned that research is really important, both as a way to figure out what really matters, but also as a way to get funding for startup companies. So even way back to my first startup, we have been applying and winning SBIRs, which stands for Small Business Innovation Research. And we were very happy to actually be awarded the largest grants that I've ever received in any of my startups, and that was $8 million over several grants from the National Institute on Aging.
Well, when you have an idea for how to help people, there are different ways of knowing whether or not you've done any good. And everybody has a sense themselves as to whether or not they're being helpful. And you can really ask the person you're working with if you've been helpful. But the only way to really know is to do formal research where you have a large group of people and you have a standard procedure that you administer. Some people get that procedure, some people get something else that is enough similar that it could be helpful. And then you really see whether what you think is helping people and what people really is or not. And for me, it's really important to know that. Good deeds are wonderful and good intentions are wonderful, but as a scientist, I want to build a foundation of knowing what's going to work, not just for one person, but for many people, not just for one day, but for the long term.
Care Daily solution is really easy to accept by lots of people because we support ambient sensing. And what that means is that we don't require a lot of behavior change in order to understand what is happening inside the home.
A lot of AI today is really centered around a person's head. It's the ability to talk and communicate and hear and sort of see things. Each one is a different AI. What Care Daily is doing is giving it a body. Until today, AI has been limited to things that are just in your face. Now we have a body, and we can have fingertips that are in the private homes of individuals that understand how they're doing. It doesn't look like a robot. It looks like your appliances. It looks like your light switches. It looks like your security system.
And we do that by adding brains in the cloud to devices such as this motion sensor, which is not a camera, so it is not invading people's privacy, and it can tell whether somebody is moving around, whether they're asleep and not moving.
We are able to understand through this nervous system the things that are happening in your home.
Activities of daily living to see if there are changes that are happening.
But doing so in a way that maintains the privacy and the dignity of these people in their own homes. It's not spying on you.
We also support these types of window door sensors so that when the door opens, we can see, oh, somebody is going out or coming in, and so on. And really, we've moved beyond the simple matter of these help buttons, which we also support, where if you press it, you're calling for help.
It should align to your chronic conditions, your needs, and your preferences. It should be technologies that you invite into the home.
Technology was interesting to me because one of the things that we kept on hearing from the caregivers we work with is just how exhausting this process was, and how guilty they felt that they weren't doing more, and how guilty they felt whenever they took time for themselves.
To me, that you've done a wonderful job with your parents and you cared for them, but I still carry guilt about days that I got upset with them, days that I wasn't there for them, that I didn't spend enough time with them when they asked me to say, hey, just come and sit with me and just have a conversation. I didn't take the time. You carry that guilt.
This might work. This might also provide that reduction in my anxiety, because I can understand that there's motion in a room, or the door opened, or that there might be this emergency button that might be pushed in the middle of the night when somebody might need an emergency, or that there's water running. And there's been times where the alarm would go off and there's no water running, but it's just like, it startles you. You're just like, okay, this brings attention to you. You understand it, especially when you hear it and it's also buzzing on your mobile app. Yeah. And it brings some alertness so you can react and address the situation, because you don't know if it could benefit you in being there. It's about being present without being intrusive.
It doesn't get tired. It doesn't need a break. And the people really need a break. So that marriage between something that could go 24/7 and might, if we did it right, be something that they could count on, so that they could do something like go out of the house and go shopping, or maybe even go to the gym and do a half-hour workout without thinking that the world was going to end because the technology was on the job.
Well, I didn't want to bother him. I don't know how busy he is or whatever, but I'll call him later on this afternoon.
Yeah, call him later on this afternoon. It's pretty important that you do. Okay?
Okay, well, why is it so important?
Well, because if I knew that well, it's because I'm always asking about Rosie and worried about Rosie's well-being.
I appreciate that too.
You need to be the same way with Troy. That's why you need to do it. Okay.
Okay, That's good, man.
That's-
I just didn't want to be a nuisance, you know. I mean, not a nuisance, but you know, something that would take up his time. But I'm sure that he'd be understand.
No, he'll tell you.
Oftentimes when somebody has a problem, it's easy to call them up and say, hey, let me know if there's anything I can do to help. We know what needs to be done now. The right answer is, I will be over at your house on Friday for an hour and I'll help watch over your loved one. And you can go get a haircut or you can go to the store. That's the right answer there. So if we can get the friends and family to just show up and volunteer an hour of their time to someone they love and offer these moments of respite, suddenly it's an embarrassment of the riches when you have multiple people chipping in on their time. And that really offloads the family caregiver.
She goes in and she takes her blood pressure and it's too high. And then I go in and take her blood pressure later and it's still that high. So that's not the whole problem.
Gina, he's the heart doctor.
We can personalize care at the individual level. This is the dream of healthcare, is personalized healthcare. And we're doing that at Care Daily. And for the professionals who are professional caregivers, clinicians, doctors, these are folks who need to look across their population today and know, who do I focus on and why? Who should I pay attention to today?
How do we have better communication between, you know, the care teams, the residents themselves, with the, you know, corporate teams, but also how do we bring that family caregiver involved as well?
The results of being able to decrease anxiety over time and the ability to protect that sleep quality, these are the same kinds of results that you would expect out of a pharmaceutical, but this is an artificial intelligence.
I think I'm fortunate in the fact that Jeannie and I are both retired and we're available to do that stuff. What makes it really difficult, what I can imagine, is for those who have elderly parents and they're still working.
What we know of caregivers is that it's often people who are in that age range of like 30s, 40s, 50s who have an elderly relative they want to keep an eye on and they want to be there for, but they're also in the middle of their own like career. They've got jobs that they can't lose. They might have children that take up a lot of their time. So
as we look out in the coming decades, by 2050, we project 3.5 billion people globally will need to rely on technologies to live independently.
It seemed like they liked the idea of a system that could kind of figure out when things were worrisome. A system that sort of said, oh, something's going on here that might require some human intervention. And that was, so we thought we might be on the right track. And then the second phase was to actually implement a study. And we actually did two in the first phase of our funding. One we did locally, and where we installed the equipment ourselves. And then another one where we did more nationally to see whether or not we could outsource that to the people, and they would do the installation themselves with help from Brian and the maker of this documentary.
One of the things that we found challenging is to recruit patients who want to go through these randomized controlled trials. The patients know that only half of the people have the full solution.
You've got to really respect what they're doing. It is a very pure style of research at the highest quality standards here. So Care Daily was in charge of the product, and we're building a technology solution that makes it feel like there's somebody else there helping 24/7, so that these family caregivers can take a mental break. And the UC Berkeley research team, really did the study design and how do you split up an active group and the control group. Everybody got the same hardware. The active group gets the added intelligence, this AI caregiver, we call it. And then you study the differences between these two groups. Of course, eventually, after the study, the control group gets access to all the benefits as well. But during the time that this research was running, the active group, the people who got a full dose of our technology medication, ended up with significantly reduced anxiety, and their sleep quality was protected versus the control group. And when we're dealing with a disease as terrible as dementia and Alzheimer's, the person with dementia will take everyone else with them. They go on a decline, and the family caregiver is on that same decline.
Most of those people who signed up were white, more affluent people.
And then the third phase was one where we were trying to say, well, can we extend this to people who don't live in major cities, and people who are in rural situations where they might not have access to internet service or home Wi-Fi. How about if we tried it with people who didn't speak English as their primary language? So it was sort of an expanding. A question is, how expandable is this? And as like most research, you do it one little step at a time, and then you see what you learn, and you go from there.
I find it not surprising that Hispanic and Latino families didn't gravitate towards the study because of the disparities that may arise with medical trusting the medical professionals, trusting these studies that they don't really know about.
Probably a lot of reasons why different cultures would feel differently about this kind of technology. I think we know that some minority cultures have historically been treated unethically by medical, in medical research, and so I remember when COVID vaccines were coming out, that was an issue in some populations.
There's some gaps that may need to be explored and educate these families that there is support out there, and it's for their good. And it's just hard. I know that maybe our generation, a generation before me, might have been more hesitant, apprehensive towards understanding what the benefits are about these technologies. I know that some of my family members were still saving cash underneath their bed.
So in an ideal world, this intervention would have reduced anxiety, improved sleep, reduced depression, and then 5 years down the road, if we looked, people would be physically more healthy. So we didn't get to that last part. Of the three things that we were shooting at, anxiety, sleep, and depression, we hit two of them, which, that's not bad when you're dealing with something where there's very little that's available to help people in those ways. We kept on trying to tweak the intervention to help people with the loneliness and isolation that we thought was fostering the depression, and we would try to make the interventions more human and more interpersonal, but we never really broke through on that.
Where we are today, we have a bunch of really cool devices, right? We've got watches that are tracking, we've got tests now that can check for everything, there's blood pressure. Also now they're coming up with strips. How do we check for UTIs? How do we check, instant blood tests?
It's already getting so easy with Ring, with this, with pillows that can measure your sleep. I mean, we can measure everything about us, pretty much, right? I mean, the fridge can track what's in the fridge and tell you a recipe on what you should make.
Eileen, I think, is ahead of the curve a little bit because I've taken the time to sit down and talk with her and explain some of the stuff that we can do on just with the devices that she uses. She uses an iPhone, she uses an iWatch, she uses the Echo.
How much data are going to collect from one person's wearable within a day? How much data? And in the past, those kind of information are seen by physicians, by researchers. I used to have myself and then my students to look at the data. But think about just a day, how much data?
Let's let the AI do what AI does best, crunching lots of data, running tasks repetitively. And let's enable humans to do what humans do best. We can't let go of the human touch. We need to free up people's time so that we can spend time together and enjoy life.
One of the real big issues with caregivers is some of them get really sick and some of them do okay and don't. So I think we could probably train using machine learning and AI better diagnosticians to sort of tell us, all right, here's somebody who's really on a path that's kind of dangerous.
An AI caregiver is composed of these little tiny modules that we call agents. An agent is, for us, something that can do one job. So for example, we have an agent that pays attention to your sleep. We have an agent that understands mobility. We have another one that can classify or understand if you are home or away. And what these agents can do is they are learning the patterns of your life privately. It is using your data to train models that describe your life, and they're not shared with anybody else. And these little agents talk to each other. They form collective decisions, and they can make predictions. So altogether, you get a bunch of these little agents working together in harmony, and you end up with something that feels human. And you can talk to it, and it can talk to you, and it can reach out to the family, and it can bring in professionals. And it understands these lifestyle patterns in your home, and it knows when those patterns break unexpectedly.
So that sort of identifying risk and resilience it seems to me like the kind of thing that you can train these bots to detect. Just like they can look at the pixels in an X-ray and say, well, this is breast cancer and this isn't.
Here's how I think of it. You've got machine learning, which is basically statistics. Take in a lot of data, make a model. It can be as simple as a graph, and then where do your new data points land? That's machine learning. AI makes it feel human.
It's a very exciting time to see the renaissance of innovation in the space.
I'm a Trekkie, right? So I think at some point in time, the hologram image is coming, right? And another point in time, you can even feel someone close to you. They might be able to teleport to you. I think that's going to come. Maybe not in my lifetime, but it's going to come.
The second sort of part of the picture is, I think, a promise that may or may not be realized, and that is to have these socially sensitive, empathic, caring, companionate kinds of bots that you can talk to and interact with, and that they do more than just repeat what you said, and that they really give you a sense that you're not alone in the world. And I think if that technology, develops and you can start to have real conversations, not like when you tell Siri 6 times, you want to know what time of day the rain's going to start, but something that's back and forth and makes you feel like you're in an interaction with something that cares and remembers things about you. I think that could be huge.
If I had a digital twin for my dad, that twin could have guided her to take her medicines, to calm her down, because he was able to do things for her and say things to her in ways that I never was able to.
We are making it feel like there's somebody there. It's not ever going to replace professional caregivers. We cannot get enough professional caregivers out there. Caregiving is about to be the very largest occupation in the economy.
You can't find more opportunity than in caregiving and the longevity market. And it's a friend of mine, Steve Jurvetson, said, if you want to know value creation, it's technology, it's demographics, and the regulatory environment. And we produce the Washington, D.C. Innovation Summit, and we see the ways in which government organizations are having to help families navigate care using the technology. So all of the forces are working in the same direction.
You know, I wish that as people watch your documentary, they will look around them and say, who is a caregiver and how can we support that person just by even giving them a hug and saying, hey, you're doing a pretty difficult job. And you know, appreciate that. We recognize it. That's just a simple thank you, because sometimes that the people that they are caring for are not able to do that, right? They are not in the mind frame where they can thank you.
So it's a challenge. But how do we utilize technology? How do we integrate it to our care plan? How do we educate people on how to proceed and provide the best care that they can?
Spend time together and enjoy life.
We can capture the underlying worldview of that Aristotle in a computer. And someday, some student will be able to not only read the words Aristotle wrote, but ask Aristotle a question and get an answer.